That is Jeff Passan of ESPN talking a little bit about the new hot pitcher on the market. The reports are Madison Bumgarner is going to stay with the Giants. They remember how he led them to a World Series win 5 years ago, and now, hey, they're at 500 and might make that wild card spot. So that's what happened in 2014. They were the last wild card, and they won a World Series behind Bumgarner. Why not again, even, if his contract status after this year is somewhat precarious. But also, Trevor Bauer, the reports are, hey, the Indians are 2 games out, and maybe they won't re-sign him after the year, but you know what? They're in a race, and they'll have a strong staff that could possibly win if they win the division, so they've got to be absolutely knock my socks off to get Trevor Bauer. That means that Noah Syndergaard, with his 2.86 ERA and 6-7 record, will be the guy on the block this weekend before the trade deadline. That's what they're saying. And even on WFAN this overnight, I was hearing Mets fans talking about, you think they'd deal him to the Braves? So Josh Brown, Knockahoma Nation, tell me, this is the storyline right now. Braves have been playing all that well lately. Noah Syndergaard to the Braves. Have you heard anything? Any rumors?
I don't hear any rumors, Marky. They don't tell me anything. I try to tweet at the people that know stuff, and I've got all the beat writers' numbers in my phone, Marky. But they don't tell me anything because you know why, Marky? I've got a big mouth, and I just can't be trusted with that kind of information. If I knew too much, Lord knows what would happen. I'd make a video about it on Facebook or Twitter. So I haven't heard anything. But in regards to Noah Syndergaard, here's how I look at pitchers, Marky. I'm going to blow your mind. I look at pitchers kind of like I look at trucks, okay? The more stuff and more technology in a truck, the more stuff can go wrong, right?
Yeah.
The more muscles a pitcher has, the more injury prone they are. Yeah, and Syndergaard has too many muscles for me. He's too built. He's built like Michael Phelps or something, or like Terrell Owens. He's built like a big old tight end. That's just too many muscles, Marky, to be worried about.
That's intriguing. I remember that I had a friend who told me, Tim Lincecum is not going to last. And he didn't. He says, look how skinny he is. Look at his motion. I don't care if you only throw him 1 pitch a game, he's going to blow out his arm. And that's basically what happened to Tim Lincecum. I mean, and I had a friend who called that, and I was very much, I mean, so I know where you're going. So, but that would be the guy who's too skinny. You don't like the muscle-bound pitcher. Interesting in all this.
You need a pitcher with a little bit of a dad bod, Marky. Okay. Like,
CC Sabathia.
There you go.
How does he ever field a bunt?
Right. He's like 58. He's still going. Right.
Mm-hmm.
You could argue he's Hall of Fame worthy, maybe. That's a little contentious, but you never know. And then Glavine. He wasn't muscle bound. Obviously, Greg Maddux, he was a unicorn. And then you had, look at like Max Fried. He's someone I don't worry about because he doesn't have many muscles.
Okay, Max Fried is supposed to be coming on for the IL this week, and there's some talk that, this start his next start will define whether or not the Braves go on the trade market or not. Do you think it is that sort of thing, Fried, a good start, and the Braves are happy with them? If not, I mean, it seems like so much on one game, and I mean, you could be, jeopardizing your entire future over this if you deal the wrong player. What's your thought on Fried coming off the IL, Josh Brown of Knockahoma Nation?
I don't think he's on the trade block, but I could be wrong. And I like Fried. I think he's fantastic. I do think everybody is sort of expendable, with the exception of probably Christian Pache and Ronald Acuna, right? And maybe Mike Soroka, certainly. Probably as untouchable as you could probably get. But, yeah, Fried, if the right offer comes up, I think he's a guy that you would consider letting go. I think maybe Sean Newcomb as well. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Bill, if you're listening. That's Sean Newcomb's dad, follows me on Twitter. But there's a couple of guys who I've heard Ian Anderson being talked about, maybe Kyle Wright. I think that Ian Anderson's going to be a better pitcher than Kyle Wright. That's just my personal opinion.
Well, now,
Especially
I get,
big name, maybe.
but here's what I guess I'm looking at. It's not so much giving up free, but if he pitches well in his next start, the idea is, well, maybe you don't make a deal for a starter. And it just seems like there's just too much weight on one game. I don't care if he throws a no-hitter.
Yeah. I don't know. I hope Freed's not thinking that way. I hope there's not that kind of pressure on him. Like, I know what you mean. Like, and the fan base will freak out. If Freed has a bad outing, they'll freak out, and everybody will want Alex Anthopoulos to go out and get, Greinke or Mad Bum or Stroman or, whoever, right?
Yeah.
I get it. I don't think it's a make or break, but at the same time, I won't downplay the fact that the Braves are in a very legit playoff run. They're not messing around. They're for real. Last year was one of those years where they weren't really expected to do anything, and then they did. And so there wasn't really that pressure. I think there's a little pressure this year for sure, to your point. So I don't know if it's one start, if that's the panic button, but a couple of more fast starts by a couple of guys could definitely expedite the process of making a deal.
Okay, now this weekend, the Braves will play the Phillies, who are now in third place, 5.5 out, 1 game back of the Nationals. And the thing is, I'm not so sure that the Braves have been playing all that well. By the way, I want to make one correction. I said that Jordan Zimmerman, I got this wrong. It was not yesterday against the Mariners, but it was rather Wednesday against the Phillies, losing 4-0. The Detroit Tigers pitcher, former national starter, who was pretty good, but has now, at the age of 33, fallen to horrendous stats, 0-8, 7.57 ERA. And I follow, forgive me for cutting into your time, but Daniel Norris from Science Hill High School goes on the bump for the Tigers in Seattle tonight, and I actually think, because he's very well rested, that he may have a chance to end his 8-game losing streak. Plus, the pitcher he's facing isn't all that good either. It's actually got a higher ERA. But anyway, with that being said, so I want to make that correction, and it leads into playing the Phillies this weekend up in Philadelphia. At one time there was a real competitive battle. I think the fear now that I have is that, look, the Braves, they were just swept by the Royals, only, played two victories in 4 games against the Nats, and then, blown out against the Brewers, who have fallen into third place in their division and such. So, I mean, when you look at this series, are you worried that this could be the series where the Phillies get back into the race?
Well, they could. They could. If the Braves play like they played the last few games, they certainly could. I don't think that the Phillies are a threat, but let's say that the Phillies sweep the Braves. Yeah, they're not totally out of it, right? They're still kind of there, and maybe you get scared a little bit, but I don't. Even if they sweep them, I don't think the Phillies are going to make the postseason. But if the Braves play like they played the last 3 games, then you got stuff to worry about. I think the bullpen, for a while, the bullpen was freakishly, surprisingly good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Luke Jackson, I still think Luke Jackson's better than some of his blown saves. I think the blown save stat doesn't tell a whole lot sometimes, although I do think it's important. I don't completely write it off, but I'm not actually that worried about the bullpen. I am worried about the starting pitching. You got to figure it out. You can't go into the postseason against presumably the Dodgers with Soroka and Keuchel and maybe Tehran, right? You have to have some more answers pitching-wise for sure. And to your point, is that Max Fried? I don't know. I think he's got it. And is it faulty? Also, I don't know. I think they need to go out, and the Braves have such a deep farm system, and you don't want to say it when you're a Braves fan, but you got to get rid of somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you go out and you get just a Savage, and you have to bleed a little bit to do it. Maybe you give up an Ian Anderson or a Kyle Wright. I'm just throwing names out there. I don't think you even consider giving up a Christian Pache. He's that special. But you can bleed a little bit, and you get a formidable guy to bring some more energy and some more just solidarity, stableness into your rotation.
Well, this is why, with Syndergaard, now being the big pitcher on the block that's obtainable, it seems. You mentioned him earlier, but Sean Newcomb, and I like Newcomb. And I know he doesn't have the greatest control in the world, which is actually one of the reasons why. And I know you like him in the pen, but I am, that's kind of where you want to start her if you're, going to walk a guy as a little bit more, that sort of thing. And I know the Mets traditionally they are really good at implementing mechanics. Okay, I covered the Mets 10 years ago in spring training, and yes, pitching mechanics was something that they really emphasized with the New York Mets. So I'm kind of thinking, that can help your control when you've got that sort of emphasis on the mechanics. And that's like a pitcher I don't want to see with the Mets if I'm a Braves fan in the future. That sort of thing. Now, so I'll just throw that out there. I want to also talk to you, Josh Brown, and Knockahoma Nation. I mean, you take a look at, could the Phillies get back into could the Phillies, stumble? I mean, if they're swept, they're 8.5 out, and the season is basically over for them, you'd think. But we don't know. I'll give you an example. Tonight's pitching matchup. Mike Soroka against Jake Arrieta. You'd take, if you looked at the overall stats, Soroka any day. 10-2 versus 8-7. His ERA is 2 full runs lower. However, last 7 starts, not so good. 4.38 ERA. Arrieta's got a bone spur in his arm, and he's only allowed 2 earned runs in his last 11 innings pitched. So who do you go with, the hot hand or the overall performance? Stay away from that, gamblers. I mean, that's all I'm going to say right there. And it shows you just how precarious things just seem to be. You mentioned a bullpen. Bats didn't do anything in a 2-0 loss. Is it a matter of finding the right roles right now? I mean, you'd think that after 100 games, we'd have them.
Yeah, it is. But the Braves have also had a little bit of maybe some bad luck. You had guys that showed up last year like Shane Carl, who were fantastic and who have kind of forgotten how to pitch this year. Mm-hmm. So there's some of that involved. But I don't think it's finding the right running. It's finding the right guys. I think that Newcomb has, as cheesy as it may sound, has kind of found himself, if you will, in the bullpen. I think that I'll admit that I was really high on A.J. Minter, but I don't know about that guy anymore. I just don't know. And my co-host at Knockahoma Nation, Ken Hendricks, was even higher on than I was and kind of comped him to Craig Kimbrell, and I thought that was a little bit lofty. But he had the stuff, but was he a dud? Baseball's weird. Was he just kind of a flash in the pan? And even though I think that Luke Jackson's better than Braves Twitter talks about him being, I don't know if he's the guy. And Ken would get mad at me. Ken loves Luke Jackson. I get it. He is very good. His slider's great. And, I mean, even on paper, he's fantastic. But I just don't know. If the Braves go to postseason right now, like tomorrow, is he the guy? I don't know. He still makes me nervous, even though Ken's right in that he's better than some of his stats, some of his blown saves. Ken's convinced that he pitches around guys intentionally, like he's a wizard like that. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's quite like that. I do think that he has worked around batters here and there and is savvy enough to do that, but I don't want to credit him with, every time he lets a guy on base, it's because he intentionally let that guy on base. I don't think that's good, you know what I mean? Yeah. But, I think they need just a lights-out guy in the bullpen, and they need one more just formidable top of the rotation starter. We'll see
what the coming days ahead bring. Of course, I can even remember when Dale Murphy was traded after the trade deadline. He had to go through waivers. Braves didn't get much for him, to tell you the truth. But anyway, speaking of Dale Murphy, Nick Markakis was one of only 3 players last year in Braves history, Murphy and Andrew Jones, to win a Silver Slugger Award and a Gold Glove Award. Last month, he's hitting above 300. Overall stats this year, not bad. 286, 9 dingers, 55 home runs. So Why is this guy a polarizing figure?
This is layered right here, Mark. This is very layered. Braves Twitter and Twitter in general, it's weird. It leans far left, and they love analytics, and a lot of the new advanced stats like weighted runs created plus, WOBA, those sorts of things, don't like Nick Markakis, right? Nick Markakis is a slap hitting for average kind of guy. He hits a lot of singles and doubles, right? And what that does, when you mainly hit singles and doubles, you look at a guy's WRC plus, which is weighted runs created plus, which is a stupid stat that involves way too much long division for me. You look at a guy's WRC plus, and it's like average or below average, right? Because he doesn't really hit for power, okay? Listen, I don't care. I think there's a psychology where people think that if you're a corner outfielder, you must hit for power. Well, you ever heard of Tony Gwynn?
Mm-hmm.
You ever heard of Ichiro Suzuki? When Ichiro Suzuki retired, I tweeted out, and I just went on like a 3-day troll binge, as I do, Marky. I tweeted out that Nick Markakis has a higher WRC plus and WOBA than your boy Ichiro, and people just freaked out, and they couldn't believe it. Well, it's true. You don't have to hit for power to be a very good baseball player. Nick Markakis gets on base, and he hits. And he hits with guys in scoring position. The only negative thing about Nick Markakis, and it's not even that big of a deal to me, is this year, for the first time ever, after 13 years of being consistently great for both sides, he's whacked against left-handed pitching. I don't care. Who cares? After 13 years, he's struggling a little bit from the left side against left-handed pitching. I don't think it's a big deal. I think he's going to be fine.
Yeah, platoon him. I mean, it's, yeah.
He's also, I'll grant you, he's also kind of boring, right? I think.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point, because I do think a lot of times historically in sports, we like the personalities and say, I mean, it's, why does Mike Trout get criticism? He's boring. He isn't a good quote.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Markakis is quiet. He rarely smiles, and fans, and it's mainly Twitter. That's the weird thing, and Twitter is the loudest though. So if a lot of big companies like ESPN and whatnot will actually make boneheaded decisions based on Twitter, right? Like
Twitter is a cesspool. According to Twitter, I'm a criminal. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Right. Well, Chris Berman, I literally heard an ESPN executive talk about this. Chris Berman, based on Twitter mentions, is not popular, right? Well, Twitter's not the real world. If you go to the real world, you go to games, you go out to the mall or a ball game or a football game or a tailgate event, people love Chris Berman. And I've been to several Braves games in person. I'm there, I'm hanging out. People love Nick Markakis in real life. On Twitter, which is maybe 10% of the total population, and of that 10%, I'd say 98% of them are complete idiots, don't like Nick Markakis because he doesn't have the power and doesn't have a ton of personality.
I've talked to Chris Berman twice. I found them both to be very engaging. And yes, he does have a likable. I mean, there's a lot been written about Chris Berman. Let's face it and such. But yes, and I mean, the man made ESPN. I can remember, with the Sports Center calls and all this back in the day. I mean, when you really want to get right down to it and such. So
Twitter doesn't like Trevor Bauer. Why? Because Trevor Bauer wore a Make America Great cap once.
Yeah.
Twitter hates Trevor Bauer.
Yeah. All right. Well, Trevor Bauer, the Braves want to give up the farm. He may become an Atlanta Brave. Who knows? And all that. I tell you what, Josh, I got to take a break here. It's always great to talk to you. It's a big weekend. Will the Braves make a trade? Or will they succumb to the Phillies? Continue to play poorly? Or do they put him in a rearview mirror for the rest of the year? That's what's going on. Something to watch. Tri-City Sports Now. We'll be back. A final thought after this.
Summer and